We're in Ashland City today at number 9 Farms, where we're going to learn about preserving and drying herbs. We're here today with Stephanie Oakes, and she's got a beautiful herb garden. And tell us what we're going to do here. We're in front of the lemon balm patch.
Yes, we are. Right now it's July, and at this time of year, perennial herbs are wanting to flower, and they're also sending up new growth from the ground. And so we want to go ahead and harvest all of this top growth so that we can have another full few months of lemon balm again.
So show me how you go about trimming this for preserving and drying.
Okay, so if I was just coming along to cut some of this lemon balm, let's say I wanted to make a tea or I wanted to cook with this, I would just cut here by where there's some new growth coming back up. But since this is July and I'm wanting our new growth to come up from the ground for this perennial herb, I'm going to actually cut it all the way back.
So you're going to give it a good haircut.
We are going to give it a good haircut.
Going almost to the ground, I see.
This is going to be true on your thyme, your oregano, your sage. You're going to see that there's little babies coming up from the ground already.
Okay, Stephanie, now let's go clip some basil. This has all been picked clean, the front half here of flowers.
So we want this plant to want to create leaves. That is the part of the basil that we want to eat. We do have restaurants that we grow for that want the blossoms, and we'll pick certain plants to allow those blossoms to form. But we want the plant to not go into seed mode. So here you can see this plant right here is wanting to form seeds and live on for future generations. But we have many months of basil production to go. So if we look here at this plant here, and I was going to be cutting this back, I would pinch it off right here where we have 2 new heads forming.
So
I would pinch
right at the
this.
branch. Okay.
And we don't want to leave a lot of stem because that just is an opportunity for disease or something like that to form. So as close down as we can, and then now these 2 are going to fill out.
Great. You said you wanted to snip the dill. And if we didn't snip it now and let it go to seed, you could use that as well, correct?
Yes, so the dill seed, we do leave some. So we have a row of dill in the main garden that we are allowing to go to seed, and we will use that both as culinary herb, and then we'll also be using that to seed our dill for the next season. We are going to use this for pickles, so I don't want to be done with dill flowers yet. I want them to still keep going for as long as we can. So I'm going to cut above where this new one is wanting to start. So I'm going to cut this right here.
Kind of like roses.
Yeah, So if I'm doing a quart of pickles, this is probably a good amount.
All right, great. Well, let's go head over to the table and you can share your preserving techniques.
Okay.
Tell us the basics about drying and preserving. What are the do's and the don'ts?
So when we're harvesting herbs, we want to do it, first of all, in the morning. And in the morning is when the plants are full, their oils are full, and you're going to get the most nutrients in them. So in the morning before the heat of the day has happened. The other thing you want to do is get them drying in their spot as soon as possible. And for different herbs, that's going to be a different method. So typically for a lot of herbs, you can just tie them up and hang them upside down in a room where there's not direct sunlight and some good air circulation. We dry mostly in our dehydrator because we're selling a lot of our dried herbs. We want them to be pretty and vibrant in color, and so a lot of our herbs we end up drying in a dehydrator.
Okay.
And then there are some herbs on the floor in our house that are on some different grates, and they're all over the place. So I try not to take over the whole house with herbs this time of year, which is very possible.
All right, let's start here.
Okay, so these dill flowers and also these grape leaves, I'm actually going to use to preserve my cucumbers and make pickles with.
Okay.
So this is just going to be used in a vinegar-based, like, refrigerator pickle. You can also do it in canning.
Okay.
And the grape leaves will actually help the cucumbers not get so soft.
Okay.
So that is how I'm going to use these. If I was going to dry dill, I'd probably do it at a different stage than the flower heads, where it's just that nice fronds.
Okay.
So we typically, if we leave them on the stem. So this is Tulsi basil, which is a culinary and a medicinal herb. The thing we use these for the most is drying for tea. Tulsi is an herb that you can just tie up the drying racks that you use in the laundry room. You can use that, and this will actually dry really beautifully. Now that is not true of all basils. So our sweet basil that we just picked, this is going to turn black.
I was going to say black.
If we leave this out. So there's two ways to dry this. One is in the dehydrator. Another thing you can do that some people do is put it in an ice cube tray with some water, and then they are taking that out and defrosting it or adding it to their soup or whatever. And one of the ways that we preserve it is making a pesto.
Okay.
And that pesto can again be frozen in an ice cube tray or something like that, and it's a perfect amount to add to things. If I wanted to dry this though, I would either do it in the dehydrator, and it will keep its color. It won't be this bright green, but it will not be black.
Okay.
The other thing you can do is take tulle, the fabric like they use for a veil, and wrap the basil leaves in that. If you're going to do it that way, you'll want to actually remove the leaves from the stem.
Okay.
And wrap that in there and put it in the refrigerator, and it's so drying in there, and it's a cool enough temperature that it kind of mimics what the dehydrator is doing, but at a cold temperature instead of a hot temperature.
So I see to your right there, you've got a jar of sage.
Yes.
Tell us the ins and outs of preserving after you've dried something and put it in a jar. What do they have to watch out for?
So this does not go in the jar for a while. So this is an airtight environment, and if there's any moisture in here, you're just gonna have a jar full of mold.
Right.
Which would be
sad.
Really sad because you've worked so hard to get to this stage. So once you have dried your herbs, we typically will put them in like a paper bag so that it's protected from the air, but still has a chance for that last bit of moisture to draw
And it breathes.
out. So it is breathing, but not losing really its oils. It's not exposed to sunlight anymore. So this is clear glass. If I was storing it in a place where there was sunlight coming in, it would either need to be in a closed cabinet or in a darker glass.
And that's just because the sun will create condensation in the jar, and it'll be back to square one with
moisture. And the other thing is it degrades the herbs. That sunlight degrades the herbs.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. We've learned a lot, and I think all of our viewers can go pick some herbs and try some of these drying techniques and preserving techniques. Thank you very much for sharing Number 9 Herb Farms with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.